glorious food. I love food. How about you? Macronutrition part 2. Macronutrition does mean those 4 macronutrients that we can live on that keep us alive. So carbohydrate, protein, fat, and alcohol. And you can live on them. Your body will work maybe not so effectively if you only have one of them. But I always use this example. If I'm out in the bush or in the desert and I've got nothing to eat and I come across a carton of beer, I can drink that beer and I'll stay alive. The alcohol is a macronutrient that will keep me alive. If I come across a bucket of butter, I can eat the butter and it will keep me alive because fat is a macronutrient. And I better turn the fridge off because I was just sharing with you that in my fridge here, there's a lot of macronutrition: carbohydrate, protein, fat, and alcohol. Woohoo! Fridge full of macronutrition. Isn't that awesome? So how do we know how much of those we need? And there's a lot of argument about percentages of macronutrients and whether or not we should, for example, drink alcohol because it's good or bad for you. How much fat do you need? How much protein do you need? And there's a big argument about we should be eating more and more and more protein. And there's a huge controversial argument on a regular basis about whether or not carbohydrate's good for you or bad for you, or it makes you fat or you shouldn't have it at all. There's carnivores who believe you should only eat meat, which is fat and protein, and there are people who believe you should only eat plant-based food, so no meat or no animal products at all. So now you are not going to get any of those animal amino acids. So what do we do? And I always go back to this very simple question. Do you have a stack of energy? Are you performing at your best? Do you love what you see in the mirror? And do you like the way your body feels to touch? I love doing that, because what's the point of having a healthy, gorgeous body if it's not firm to touch? And then are you getting the results that you want? So it doesn't matter what you're eating. If you're not getting the results that you want, if you're not full of energy, if you don't perform at your best and you don't like what you see in the mirror, then whatever you're eating isn't working for you. Your macronutrition isn't working. Now, there's an argument to say that there's also micronutrition, which is, of course, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals. They're things that give us great hair, great skin, great nails, eyesight, strong bones. So potassium and vitamins and minerals and calcium and all that stuff that there's also a very big argument about, because a lot of people take supplements for their micronutrition. So people supplement vitamin C. I'd like people to supplement vitamin D out in the sun. Wouldn't that be fantastic, rather than taking a pill? And I just say that personally because there's some things that I always ask, if it's made in a factory and it comes in a plastic pill, if it's made in a factory and it comes in a plastic container, how can it be as good as fresh air, sunshine, and real food? Now, there's an argument to that, and I'm not here to argue about anything. What I would love to clear up, though, is some of the misconceptions about macronutrition. So if you have a look at we'll leave alcohol out of it, because alcohol is a toxin. Your body's got nowhere to store it. When you have alcohol in your system, you don't burn the other 3 macronutrients, because your body has to burn up the alcohol because you can't store it anywhere. And we always joke at this house, if you've got a beer belly, it's not beer in there. If you put a tap in there, beer will not come out. Alcohol can't make you fat because there's nowhere to store it. And a lot of people don't drink alcohol at all, and a lot of people can't live without it. It's their favourite thing that de-stresses them. So we'll park that to the side for a minute, alcohol, because you can live on it, but you wouldn't function effectively if the only thing you had was alcohol, of course. So carbohydrate, protein, and fat are the 3 major macronutrients that get argued about, and particularly what percentage we should have or how much we should and shouldn't have. The interesting thing is when you go back to basics, and that's what I always do, I always ask the fundamental questions. What are they made of? Where do they come from? What are the difference between them? And what does your body do with them? And how do we store them? How do we burn them up? So the interesting thing about fat and carbohydrate, technically they're the same thing. They're both made from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. They just have a different chemical makeup. The bonds that connect the molecules are just a little bit different, but they're made from the same thing. So I always ask the question, how does my body know whether I'm eating fat or carbohydrate? Because they're made of carbohydrate, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. What your body does with them is where the change happens. So yes, you need to have fat. So we'll start with fat first. It's got 9 calories per gram. It's a very high energy substance. You store it between your skin and your muscle as subcutaneous fat. You store it inside your visceral fat is to support your internal organs, so inside your body. And it's used, of course, we use it for lots of different things, to keep us warm, to keep us padded. and the connections for our nervous system. Fat has a lot to do with that. So we have to have fat. We seem to not like the stuff that sits between our skin and our muscle though, and we have a bit of an argument about how much of that we should have. Some people want 5% and some people are happy with 25% and some people have got 50% and don't care. But the interesting thing about fat is we have an enormous storage system for it. It's the only one that has literally unlimited storage. So yes, it doesn't matter how many fat cells you've got, and as I always joke, we've got somewhere between 40 to 50 billion, but I didn't count them and I don't know who did. You might have more than that. But regardless of how many you've got, they can keep expanding. So our storage system for fat is unlimited. And the really interesting thing with that is that each fat cell in your body, whether it's 40 or 50 billion or you've got 100 billion, I don't know, has a little baby fat cell attached to it, which if the thing expands and gets too big, it can actually break apart. So instead of just hypertrophy, you get hyperplasia. So you can break that fat cell in half and make another one, and that can get bigger. And the reason I've gone into depth study of that is it always fascinated me. How do we have people now that are 300 or 400 kilos in size? There's a television show in America called My 600-Pound Body. How do we get that fat was my question. And that's what happens. We can have hypertrophy of fat cells and we also have hyperplasia. So how do they get fat? We put fat into them. Fat's already fat. So when you eat a substance that's got fat in it, so if you eat butter or margarine or oil or monounsaturated fat that comes in nuts and avocados and olive oil, doesn't matter what you put in. If you put fat into your body doesn't have to convert it into fat. It's already fat, so it can get into your fat cell pretty easy. So if you don't burn it up, fat will go to your fat cell very, very quickly. Just again as a side note, the fat that sits between our skin and our muscle tends not to be too dangerous. It's the stuff that sits in between our internal organs that becomes very dangerous. So we might not like the way we look if we've got excess fat on the outside of our body, but it tends not to be something that could kill us. And I always share that no woman's ever died of a fat bum. Men, on the other hand, can die of a fat belly because that means they've got, and that's when you touch a man's belly and it's hard, that's because the fat's inside supporting the organs, but the organs are getting squished now because there's too much fat. So yes, fat comes from animal products, it comes from some plant-based products, which are monounsaturated fats, and there's an argument about polyunsaturated fats, which is seed oil, so that oil that comes from seeds or from plants. But ultimately, if you don't burn any of those up, they end up in your fat cell and they'll either make you look lumpy and chubby or it'll be dangerous. So how do you burn it up? Your body uses fat as an energy source to survive. When you're in your aerobic system, you're burning a percentage of fat, a percentage of carbohydrate, and if you are exercising, a little bit of protein, a tiny little bit. So we need to have fat. It's got 9 calories per gram. It comes from our food, and if we don't burn it up, it ends up in our fat cell. Pretty simple. Carbohydrate is interesting because the storage system for carbohydrate is only about 0.5 kilo. We store some in our brain as glucose, we store it in our muscles as glycogen, and we store it in our liver as glycogen, but only about 0.5 kilo. So when you say I'm fat from carbohydrate, well, that's not true because you only store 0.5 kilo. So if you weigh 60 kilos, only half a kilo of that 60 kilos is coming from carbohydrate. However, your body can, if it has too much carbohydrate, will happily turn it into fat, convert it into fat, and store it in your fat cell. So it doesn't matter what we eat. In one way, shape, or form, everything ends up in our fat cell if we don't burn it up, including carbohydrate. But the beautiful thing about carbohydrate, which tends to come from plant products, and just as a very interesting side note, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, whether it comes from a plant, a banana, a piece of lettuce, a piece of broccoli, a piece of bread, some pasta, some rice, doesn't matter, it's all carbohydrate. There's some more nutritious carbohydrate than others, and that's where micronutrition comes in, because some carbohydrate comes with vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants and fibre, and of course something like lollies that has no fibre and no nutrition. But they are still carbohydrate. They are made from carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. And as a macronutrient, your body needs them. And for an energy source to exercise, Your body definitely needs them, and that's where I get really excited. So we use, in the aerobic system, we use fat, carbohydrate, and a little bit of protein. But when you start exercising at a high intensity in your lactate system or your phosphate system, your body now only uses carbohydrate or stored phosphates. So if you want to be fit and you want to be strong, you've got to have carbohydrate. Muscles run on glycogen, and that is carbohydrate. So to say, oh, carbohydrate's bad is a really interesting thing to say. Too much carbohydrate, or if you don't do any exercise, your body will turn carbohydrate very quickly into fat and you'll end up chubby, yes. But do we need it? And for somebody like me who exercises intensely, for elite athletes that exercise intensely, you have to have carbohydrate. And very interestingly, your brain runs on glucose. And if you don't think that's true, God forbid you ever end up in a hospital, if you can't eat food because you're sick or injured, they'll put you on a glucose drip. They don't put you on a protein drip. They don't put you on an alcohol drip. Some people wish that they did. They don't put you on a fat drip. They put you on a glucose drip because your brain runs on glucose. So it's an important thing. So you get it from your food, predominantly plant-based food. You store 1/2 kilo in your brain, your liver, and your muscles. And if you don't burn it up, your body can convert it into fat. Protein's not that much different. The only thing that probably needs to be cleared up is that we don't use protein for an energy source. We're made of protein. Often when I say to people, when you go exercise, what do you use? A lot of people think, oh, if I lift weights, I'm using protein as an energy source. Again, as an interesting side note, if you want stronger muscles, bigger muscles, if you want to be a powerful person, you are using your muscles. The energy source for that comes from carbohydrate, not from protein. But when you lift heavy, when you overload your muscles and bones, you break down muscle fibers. They have to repair, they have to regenerate and supercompensate so you can get stronger, and you repair your body with protein. So when you eat protein, it goes into your bloodstream. It goes into the amino acid pool. You've probably heard that. We have essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. And you've got to, that's how protein spreads out throughout your body. Because if something's broken, so if you break a fingernail, if you break some skin, or if you break down muscle tissue when you lift heavy, your body goes to the amino acid pool and pulls proteins out of there to rebuild your body, because we're made of protein. So do we need it? Hell yes. The question for all of this though is, how much do you need? And again, there's a lot of argument about how much fat do I need, how much carbohydrate do I need, how much protein do I need, and what percentage. And because there's so much argument, I'm not going to add to the argument. I always ask this question: do you perform at your best? Do you have a stack of energy? Do you love what you see in the mirror? Does your body feel good to touch? And are you getting the results that you want? So you can argue as much as you want to about how much protein you need, or how much carbohydrate you need, or how much fat you need. But if you're not getting enough, or if you're getting too much, you won't have the right answer to all of those questions, which is, yes, I have a stack of energy. Yes, I'm performing at my best. Yes, I love what I see in the mirror. And yes, I'm getting the results that I want. So all I'm asking is this: listen to your body. And if you've got a healthy, fit, strong body with a healthy, fit, strong endocrine system, and if you want to be fit and strong, first of all, there's an energy source to do that, of course. If you're going to go out, puff, high intense activity, lift heavy things, get fit and strong, the energy source from that is, of course, carbohydrate. So do you need it? Yes. If you're doing long distance activity past 2 minutes, and I don't know why you would, because that's to live your life, of course, but to exercise, if you exercise at high intense activity, you're going to burn phosphates and stored carbohydrates. If you then go into the aerobic system when you're exercising, you're going to be using fat, carbohydrate, and a little bit of protein. But that's what we use all day long, every day. We live in the aerobic system. And I'm sharing that because I want to get really fit and strong so that I can do all the other things that I want to do. And the fit and strong energy source is carbohydrate. If you go for long distances, you'll now be burning carbohydrate, protein, and fat, or a little bit of protein, and you would hope to burn a lot of fat. But because you're exercising at such low intensity, not very much of anything is getting burnt. When you exercise at high intensity, you still don't burn very much when you're exercising, but you increase your base metabolic rate because you've got more muscle tissue, so you need more calories to survive. You increase your metabolic rate, which means during the day you can do things faster with more energy because you've got a fast metabolic rate because you're fit and strong. And you change your respiratory quotient, which is where the calories are coming from. So when you're not very fit, your body will burn a reasonable amount of carbohydrate, protein, and fat during the day, but it prefers to burn carbohydrate because it's easier. When you're really fit, your body much prefers to burn fat when you're not doing any exercise because it wants to store the carbohydrate for your high intense activity. So if I break that down again, it just means that you turn your body into a fat burning machine when you're fit and strong, but your fat burning happens when you're resting. And most of us, we're resting for more times than we're exercising. So wouldn't it be nice to have a body that burns fat really fast? So there's macronutrition in a nutshell. Protein, we need it to rebuild. Carbohydrate, we need it for energy, for high intense activity and for our brain. Fat, we need it because we're going to use it all day long, every day, because we use it as an energy source in our aerobic system. And we burn it much, much faster if we're fit and strong. If we don't burn all of those, protein can convert to fat, carbohydrate can convert to fat, fat is already fat, and alcohol, when you drink it, the other macronutrient, your body won't burn any fat or carbohydrate or protein, your body prefers to burn alcohol when you've got alcohol in your system because it's a toxin and nowhere to store it. So in one way, shape or form, all 4 macronutrients will end up as chubby bits on your backside or chubby bits on your belly if you don't burn them up. So that's how I'd like to wrap that all up. Food for me is such a complicated, controversial, contradicting topic that I'd like to keep it really simple. Get fit, get strong, turn your body into a food burning, calorie burning, fat burning, carbohydrate burning, alcohol burning machine so that everything you eat gets burnt up. You get the exact amount and right amount of energy for what you need to do because you've got a healthy brain. And when you've got a healthy brain, you've got a healthy endocrine system, and your endocrine system says, eat when you're hungry, stop eating when you're full. This is what you need to eat at the moment because this is what we need. So for me, it's about get fit, get strong, and everything else will look after itself. Get puffed to get fit, lift heavy to get strong, do it safely so you don't get injured, do it fast so you don't get bored, and then you can come into your kitchen and open up your fridge. And instead of looking at, I wonder what macronutrition I have to eat today, I wonder what what carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and protein I need to eat today, or nitrogen, which is what protein is made of. I can go to my fridge and go, what do I feel like eating? And eat whatever I bloody well want, because my body will burn it up. Wouldn't that be awesome? Super duper doo, how are you? Enjoying yummy food, woohoo!